Welcome to the Sidecar Sync podcast, your home for all things innovation, artificial intelligence, and associations. Greetings and welcome to the Sidecar Sync, your home for content at the intersection of all things AI and the world of associations. My name is Amith Nagarajan.
And my name is Mallory Mejias.
And we are your hosts. And really excited to be here today, as always, of course, but it's been a couple weeks since we've recorded a live episode due to all the things that happen in the summertime. How are you doing, Mallory?
I'm doing really well, Amith. Right before we started recording, I let you know, and I guess I should let our audience know that we just got a new puppy in our household. Her name is Chai, and she is about 2.5 months old. And we have another dog who's 5 years old, and she, I was telling Amith, was very easy, very mellow, very chill. Chai is not that. So she is rambunctious. She's right here next to me in her crate. If you all hear any doggy cries, that's probably what it is, but I gave her a treat in there, so I think she'll be busy. But anyway, I've basically been in dog mom mode for the last few weeks. What about you, Amith? What are you up to?
Well, that sounds like fun. I mean, puppies can definitely take the sleep out of the evenings.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
they've got some challenges, but they sure are cute. That's how they stay in business.
Right.
So the barks and other dog whining noises we hear in this episode will not be AI enhanced sound effects from your end. They will be the real deal.
Real world.
Yeah. Well, my wife and I just took our dogs, who are a lot older. My older dog just turned 12 and the younger one is 11 and a half. So they're a little bit further along in their life journey, but we just took them on a fun little road trip. We're in the Utah mountains in the summertime, as a lot of our listeners know. And we decided to go to a different mountain town from the Park City area out to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And we took the dogs with us and got to see a couple of national parks in the area and really just have a great time. It was pretty mellow because the dogs aren't really up for lots of long distance walks or anything at this point, but they loved it. We loved it. It was great. We just got back from that. And now I'm just waiting for my kids to get home from camp. One just landed after 3 weeks in the Alaska wilderness, and the other one's coming home from 3 weeks of art camp in Michigan in a few more days. So it's a good summer out here in the mountains.
Wow. Busy few weeks for the both of us. Have you been thinking about AI in your past busy few weeks, aside from, in your daily long walks with the dogs, or have you been focused on the nature?
I was going to say not at all. I'm just kind of chilling right now. But anyone who knows me for half a second knows that that's not something I'm good at. So I have been enjoying myself out here very much. It is really magical to be out here in nature and get to enjoy that. But the world of AI never stops, does it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's an exciting time. There's a lot of cool stuff happening. Some of the topics we're going to be talking about today, I think, are fascinating. And in my world, I spend a lot of my time deep in the weeds of the technology, both because I really love it. I always have been a super nerd when it comes to programming and tech and all that stuff. So this is kind of a renaissance time period to be in that field. So having fun, working with our team at Blue Cypress on our agent architecture, which is powering a lot of our products, and we're putting it in the world as an open source system as part of the MemberJunction platform. So lots and lots of work has gone into that. Super exciting. It's kind of like the new Google Opal product, but much more enterprise scale. I don't know. Have you played with Opal yet, by the way?
I haven't played with Opal, but I sent you a post about it on LinkedIn because I watched a quick demo video and it looks incredible. Have you played around with it?
I haven't actually worked with it myself, but I watched some of their videos and I read the content, and it's very much what we're going for with the MemberJunction environment in a much more enterprise scaled, secure way in your own ecosystem. But the idea for those that haven't looked at it, and we'll include a link in the show notes for everyone, Google Opal is kind of a consumer grade agent builder. So it's designed so that any user can just go into a visual interface and you're kind of designing something along the lines of a flowchart. So if you can think of your process, it's like, hey, step one, I want to prompt the AI to come up with good ideas for topics for a LinkedIn post. Step two is I want to research each of those topics and figure out which of those topics might be trending in my community. Step three, I want to pick one topic and then develop an outline for the post. Step four might be develop an image for that post. Step five might be go ahead and post it, or it might be let me review it and then post it. So I would call that a very kind of basic agentic flow. For some people they go, oh, that sounds really awesome. Let's go automate that. Well, the good news, by the way, is you can do that with Zapier. You can do that with LinkedIn. You can do that with a whole bunch of tools like Box.com has agentic AI tools that can do stuff like this. And now Google has entered the fold with Opal, which is their consumer-facing Very simple, very clean, and very cool looking UI where you can just literally drag and drop these widgets on the screen and connect them with lines and, specify your prompts and all of that. So we've been working on something somewhat similar. The difference is that in an AI data platform designed for the enterprise, you have all of your business data in your environment, and then you can run your agentic flows safely within that without your data ever leaving your data platform. So from a consumer perspective, what Google is doing and another number of other companies are working on similar things, I'm so excited about it. It's going to empower everyone to do so many cool things. And we're doing something similar kind of for associations and anyone else for that matter who wants to have a free platform to do that in their own data ecosystem. So I've been like super busy with that for weeks and weeks. It's been a lot of fun.
Hmm. And we all know too, when Google releases something, they tend to do a really good job with it. NotebookLM was fantastic, so I am sure Opal will be the same. Amith, is the agentic platform open and available now or about to
Yeah.
be? Okay.
Yeah, it's in the most recent release of MemberJunction. If you go to docs.memberjunction.org, you can download it, you can install it. It takes a little bit of technical skill to get that going, but we actually, and by the end of this quarter, we're going to be introducing a new product called MemberJunction Central, and this is going to be a hosted platform where any user can go to a website and create a MemberJunction instance just with a few clicks of the mouse, and it'll do all of the cloud provisioning, the database setup, the installation, and we'll maintain it, upgrade it for you, all that kind of stuff. We'll really take all the work out of it. And then there'll be connectors where you can say, oh, I want to bring in my HubSpot data. I want to bring in my AMS data. I want to bring in my LMS data. Click, click, click. And a few hours later, all of your data is sitting in a secure AI data platform that's totally open source and totally controlled by you, which you can then run all your agentic flows on top of. So we're pretty excited about that. Right now, you can, in fact, use it. You just have to download the software and know a little bit about how to set it up, which is, I'd say kind of a low to medium grade IT skill. It's not yet like business user centric, but it will be very soon. So very excited about that. By the way, you mentioned NotebookLM. We're talking about so many cool AI things before we actually get into the
Right.
meat
I
of
know.
the
Is this the
episode.
episode?
This is pretty sweet. But NotebookLM, I just saw one of our keynote speakers from last year's Digital Now, Neil Hoyne, who's the chief strategist at Google, just did a post, I think yesterday, talking about NotebookLM's new video feature. So just like they've, really done a lot to revolutionize the way people create short form audio, short podcasts, things like that with NotebookLM, they're doing the same thing with video now, which is pretty astounding. I haven't
Oh,
played with
yeah.
that one either yet, but I can't wait to get into it.
Maybe we'll have to dedicate a full topic or a full episode to kind of the latest Google advancements in the near future, since we know when they do something, they do it well.
Sounds great. Let's do that.
All right, today we are exploring an AI company that we've discussed many, many times on the pod, and that is Anthropic. We will look at how this safety focused company is actually dominating enterprise adoption. Then we will examine AI development timeline predictions, particularly around artificial general intelligence or AGI. And finally, we'll discuss the massive infrastructure challenges that will affect AI availability and pricing for all of us. So, first and foremost, why enterprise AI safety actually drives adoption. Anthropic, the AI company behind Claude, one of our beloved favorite tools here at the Sidecar Sync, has achieved something remarkable: 10x revenue growth to $1 billion last year, now exceeding $4 billion annually, with their CEO saying they're on pace for another 10x in 2025. What makes this especially interesting for associations is that 80% of their revenue is B2B, and they're now leading in enterprise API usage, even surpassing OpenAI in some areas. The fascinating backstory is that Anthropic was founded by former OpenAI employees who left over safety concerns. And you might be thinking the safety focused AI company would slow them down, but it's actually become their competitive advantage. Businesses want trustworthy and reliable AI and respect Anthropic's focus on understanding why things go wrong, what is typically called interpretability. Claude 4 is becoming incredibly popular with programmers and developers, and Anthropic sees these technical users as early adopters who open doors to the rest of their companies. Funny enough, when I was doing research on this topic, I read something that stood out to me. When Anthropic's founders gather for dinner, they discuss how, quote unquote, weird the company's growth is. They are admittedly science nerds focused on safety, not sales, yet their safety first approach has become synergistic with business needs. For associations, we think this raises important questions about how prioritizing safety and trust can actually accelerate AI adoption rather than hinder it. So, Amith, this is quite an interesting read. It seems almost counterintuitive. What's your initial take on this?
A few different thoughts come to mind. First of all, I think this will resonate deeply for people in the not for profit association and broader social sectors because they're so deeply mission focused. So, Anthropic wants to bring safe AI to the world, and they want to do it in a way that is respectful and inclusive. And again, above all else, they want it to be safe because they realize the immense power of AI. Now, they're one of many leading labs that have remarkable capabilities. So they alone perhaps cannot change the game, but they can influence it. And so, what you're describing, though, in terms of mission centricity, is something that I deeply believe in. There's a whole movement in the world of for profit companies called conscious capitalism, another one called B Corps, another one called Evergreens, that are companies that believe in having deep mission first prioritization. And if you think about it, really what it boils down to is priorities over in terms of timescales. So if you think in very short term, you can optimize for a different outcome than if you are willing to think a little bit longer term. So Anthropic's game, I think they're maybe a little bit too modest and that they're very smart business people too, and that they are looking ahead and saying, hey, if we really stick to our values and align on our purpose statement and we invest the way we said we're going to invest, people are going to stick with us. People are going to find that our products are really good, but most importantly, they can trust us. And that's so incredibly critical. So it doesn't surprise me at all. I've been a fan of theirs for quite a number of years. And, we use a lot of their stuff, not exclusively, but we use a lot of Anthropic stuff, both at the API level for some of our products. A lot of our developers use Claude Code. I personally use the Claude desktop app as my primary AI day to day. I think you do as well, Mallory.
Yep.
And so, it's a company, and part of the reason that I feel that way is I just feel more safe and secure. I don't know if that's great marketing or if there's really some substance to it. I believe there's a lot of substance to it. I'm somewhat saying that kidding, but part of it is just walking down the path that you said you were going to walk down and staying committed. So I actually don't think it should be surprising because people want, especially in a world that things are changing really rapidly, the people that you work with are critically important. In every business that I've been involved with, I've always been in B2B and I've always focused on how do you show that you're the right team and the right people and have the right culture that people want to align with. Because the product you happen to have at the moment, it's going to change. And so the way it's going to change is dependent upon the people that are behind it and the culture and the value system. So to me, it's exciting to see a company that has this mindset being so successful, and they're not alone. There are a number of other companies that have a similar commitment. Mistral, based in France, has some outstanding models. They're not quite at the frontier level in terms of absolute power levels, but they're very close. And they too are also deeply focused on this interpretability, transparency. They do a lot in the open source community, not only to share their models, but to also really clearly articulate to the world how they train them and their approach to it and how they test them. So my bottom line is I was both excited by this news and both because I'm a fan of the products, but just I'm a fan of doing good business and finding a way to align your goals with your customer and with societies more broadly.
I feel like when we think about innovation, we think about speed, moving quickly, not getting too lost in the details. But Anthropic is really a case study and a company that's doing incredibly innovative work, some of the most innovative work in the AI space, but also not necessarily moving slowly, but taking that time to make sure safety parameters are in place. So for you, Amith, as who I would call an innovator through and through, what lessons do you feel associations can learn from this in terms of moving quickly on AI adoption, but doing so in a way that's true to their mission and true to their own culture?
Yeah, and I think, with associations, that's such a natural thing that people are aligned with mission. And I think sometimes mission is unclear, though. Part of what I wrote about in my first book back in 2018, The Open Garden Organization, I wrote in that book about the importance of having clarity around purpose. Mission statements combine the who, the what, the where, the why. They combine kind of everything. And the term mission actually is fundamentally has a start, a middle, and an end, right? So missions begin and missions end. In comparison, purpose statements purpose don't really change. At least well-written ones can stand the test of time indefinitely. And so I think that rooting on a very clear purpose statement can really be quite helpful. If you want to dig deeper into this, Jim Collins, in my mind, is the authority on this type of fundamental form of culture work. His book Good to Great, as well as a number of his other books, talk about this idea of core ideology, which is the mixture of core purpose and core values combined. Those are two elements that essentially form the bedrock of the organization. And then on top of that, you have this idea of an envisioned future, which is a combination of BHAG and other things that you do in terms of the where you're going. But in any event, the thing that I'm pointing out here is to your question of associations and how they interact with this. The more deeply rooted that sense of purpose is, and the clearer the values are, then the better that is to guide your AI approach. So in some cases, if your culture is murky, if your understanding of your culture, both you as well as everyone on your team and your close-in volunteers, perhaps there's some work to be done there to say, like, well, why are we here? Like, what's the point of our organization? Why do we exist? What is the statement that we can make as to our purpose, our reason for existence, that will stand the test of time, something that will mean as much in 20 years as it means today? And then let's focus on aligning our AI initiatives to support that purpose statement. So I do think it's a navigational beacon, a North Star of sorts.
Hmm. Do you feel like it's too early in the AI exponential curve, convergent curves we're experiencing to draw a line in the sand and say we're only going to use AI companies or models from AI companies that prioritize safety? Do you feel like you shouldn't take that stance just yet? What are your thoughts on that?
I think there's some pretty obvious black and white areas, and there's also a lot of gray areas. The black and white part is if you see a company that's just kind of haphazardly, doing whatever the hell they want without any regards whatsoever to alignment and safety, maybe you should think twice about using the stuff they have, either as a consumer or as from a business perspective. Do you need to go to the ultra gold standard, whoever touts that they are the safest, most aligned, which Anthropic clearly is one of the leaders in that space? Maybe, but is that the right choice for you? I'll give you an example of where I think Anthropic may be the wrong choice. Anthropic has really powerful high-end models. So their Claude 4 series has Opus and Sonnet. I believe they have a version of Haiku coming, which is their very small model, which is faster and cheaper, but they're expensive. I mean, Claude 4 is a very expensive series of models. They made their older models a little bit cheaper, but their most cutting-edge models are amazing, but they're also extremely expensive. I think it's something like $70 per million tokens of output from the Opus model and $10 for input. And to give you a point of comparison, if you inferenced on Grok with a Q to be clear, the fast inference hardware folks who have their own cloud, very secure cloud that we use a lot, you can get models that are comparable to Claude 4 Sonnet in terms of performance for literally 1/20th the cost, that are also about 10 to 20 times as fast when inferenced on that platform. That's also true for Cerebras, which is another fast inference provider, and there's others that are coming down that path with open source models. So open source models cannot say the same thing that Anthropic says. Anthropic, part of their thing is, hey, the way we develop our models, the way we contain our models in terms of how we deploy them are all aligned and done with this safety-focused mindset. But it's at the ultra premium range, and you don't need ultra premium for everything you do. It's incredibly powerful for some things, but there's lots of AI workloads where you can do just fine with something like a Qwen 3 model, or this new model that came out about a week and a half ago called Kimi K2, those are both Chinese companies. One from a company called Alibaba, which is known for e-com in China, and another one is from an upstart company called Moonshot AI. And to be clear, these are not models that you inference in China, but you can inference them on US cloud providers or cloud providers wherever you happen to live that can provide those models since they're open source. So I guess the point I would make is ultimately it's probably a hybrid strategy. You may choose one or two frontier model companies like an OpenAI or a Google. We were talking about them earlier. They have an amazing set of models with the Gemini series that often don't get mentioned in the same breath as Anthropic and OpenAI, and actually unfairly so, because their models are really just as good in terms of overall performance. So there's choice, and choice is good fundamentally. So I think that you should make your own choices based on your priorities. But ultimately, I do think this topic is really key. And I want to highlight one thing that's the non-obvious part of what you said earlier and just really drive the point home. They at Anthropic, as well as everyone else, myself included, believed that Anthropic would probably be a little bit behind the true frontier. That is the belief they had when they started. And that is the belief that they had actually up until recently within Anthropic. Dario Amodei, the CEO, along with the rest of his co-founders, have publicly said this, that they may not be the absolute latest or most frontier capability because of their focus on safety and alignment. They might always be slightly behind, but the mindset was that's actually okay because these models are getting so good so fast that being even a small percentage behind on timeline or capability is fine. And that was true and still is true in terms of it being a reasonable offset, right, to having the safest model available or one of the safest models available. But the point I'd make is that now in this recent news release, they're saying, hey, actually, the interpretability and the alignment focus is making our models better. Because so these guys are a bunch of really smart technical people. They don't do most of their alignment manually. It's this process they have, which is a recursive self-improvement loop, where the model is improving itself using a constitutional AI approach. That's a concept and a term that Anthropic folks have been, I think they coined it, and then they're really focused on it, where essentially they define the value system for the AI. And values are things that are somewhat hard to define. So the best way to reinforce values is through examples. You kind of know it when you see it type of thing, like, oh, is this a good or a bad example of value A, B, or C? And so what they've done is they've trained their models to learn their value system, and they're constantly having models look at the outputs of other models to help them become better and more aligned. And lo and behold, that process actually makes their models a lot more capable as well. So it's really interesting. I think that their alignment research is paying off in unexpected ways. So it's a nice bonus. I think they still have a good chance of winning, even if they were slightly behind, but right now they are not.
At Sidecar, we know the power of bringing the brightest, most innovative minds out there together in person to learn and grow. And that's exactly what we do at our annual conference, Digital Now. Digital Now is a 2.5-day conference bringing Silicon Valley and executive-level content to the association space. We bring in expert speakers from places like Google, Amazon, and the U.S. Department of State to share insights on emerging technologies and how they're reshaping the future of associations. Whether you come solo or bring your team to collaborate and implement together, you'll leave with a clear vision for what's next. Join us November 2nd through 5th, 2025 at the Lowe's Hotel in Chicago. To secure your spot, visit digitalnow.sidecar.ai.
Your association holds a ton of content, from white papers and online courses to institutional knowledge and more. Your job is to cut through the noise and meet the knowledge needs of your members. They need to know they're getting the most up-to-date and trusted content. That's where Betty comes in. She's your association's AI knowledge assistant, trained on your content. Everything from your standards, policies, and education to your full resource library, or even your event. Betty delivers instant, trusted answers 24/7. Instead of sending your members off with a white paper or to a page on your website to figure it out by themselves, give them an AI assistant who's an expert in your industry's knowledge. Go to meetbetty.ai today to book your demo and get started on creating your industry's first AI assistant.
If you're listening to this podcast right now, you're already thinking differently about AI than many of your peers. Don't you wish there was a way to showcase your commitment to innovation and learning? The Association AI Professional, or AAIP certification, is exactly that. The AAIP certification is awarded to those who have achieved outstanding theoretical and practical AI knowledge as it pertains to associations. Earning your AAIP certification proves that you're at the forefront of AI in your organization and in the greater association space, giving you a competitive edge in an increasingly AI-driven job market. Join the growing group of professionals who've earned their AAIP certification and secure your professional future by heading to learn.sidecar.ai. That's a great point, Amith. And I wanted to share too, while prepping for this episode, you all know if you've listened to the pod before that I pretty much exclusively use Claude. And I was having it help me synthesize some of this information for the next thing I'm going to talk about. And it actually booted me out of the chat and said this violates our terms of service because I was talking about AGI and kind of like misuse of AI. So I might be on some watch list, unfortunately, right now. But I thought, hey, it's doing a good job. It's doing what it's supposed to do. So moving to the next part of this episode, I want to talk about the AI arms race and timeline predictions for artificial general intelligence. So leading AI experts are making increasingly aggressive timeline predictions for AGI. Jeffrey Hinton, an AI pioneer, believes that there's a 10 to 20% chance that AI development ends in human extinction. So that's kind of a hard pill to swallow. There are some people that are a lot more hopeful in terms of our AI future. But despite these concerns, both Western tech firms and Chinese counterparts are accelerating their pursuit of AGI, artificial general intelligence, that could replace most desk jobs. The predictions are getting a bit more urgent. So Anthropic's co-founder says, when I look at the data, I see many trend lines up to 2027. Demis Hassabis of Google DeepMind thinks AI will match human capabilities within a decade. And Mark Zuckerberg of Meta has said superintelligence is in sight. What's driving this race is the belief that benefits will accrue mainly to whoever achieves the breakthrough first. So it's kind of like the prisoner's dilemma. Everyone knows that they should slow down for safety, but they're convinced others won't, so they push ahead. This is the part that I got flagged on. Industry experts outlined 4 ways that AI could go wrong as we approach AGI. One of those being misuse, so bad actors using AI for harm. Misalignment, the AI not wanting what we want it to do. Mistakes, so truly unintended consequences. And structural risks, cumulative societal harms. For associations, this timeline means preparing yourselves, your members, for potentially massive disruption within, I don't know, the next decade, the next few years. Amith, I'm curious on your take about AGI, hearing that we could get there by 2027. That's just 2 years away at the time of the recording of this pod. What, what are your thoughts on this part of the episode?
Well, one thing I'd say just to open up my commentary on this topic is I'm guessing Zuck might have seen that when he was in his metaverse or something in terms of having super intelligence in sight, because I don't think we're quite there yet, but maybe he sees something no one else does. In any event, I think that the ranges of timescales are highly dependent upon what you define as AGI or super intelligence. But I think the most useful definition of AGI, ASI, etc., isn't so much like the different technical terms. They all mean technically different things to different people, but the idea that AI can do most human labor, right? So if AI can do most of the work that we do, then that is generally useful. It's already, I think, quite useful, but AI right now doesn't have agency generally. It's kind of trapped in a box. That's very rapidly changing as we open the episode up. There are consumer grade tools where you can have AI kind of go into the world and act on your behalf, increasingly in an autonomous way. And to me, that's actually one of the main barriers to realizing the functional utility of what people call AGI, where an AI can go out there and do most of the work that most of us do. Well, actually, I think today's AI, like Claude Opus 4, GPT 04, 03 Pro, quite frankly, is quite a bit better than a lot of the people that are out there at a lot of different tasks. It's better than I am at a lot of the things that it does for me. And so therefore, I would say, actually, I'm quite comfortable with the idea of AI going out there and doing these things. I think it's going to be a boom in terms of productivity. I think it has massive numbers of side effects that could be problematic because, again, of how quickly things are happening. We've talked in the past on this pod about employment in general. Dario Amodei from Anthropic has said that a very large percentage of white-collar jobs will be automated, as you've talked about before. And I think he's probably right. What I do think that will happen in parallel with that, though, is so much economic growth that you will create new categories of opportunity for the people who are able and willing to go after those new opportunities. Now, able and willing are both important terms. Able is about the preparation, which is education, which is, skills, which is preparation through practice. And then willingness, obviously, is the question of both at a societal level, do people need to work, which is a big question, but does a particular person need to work, right? And is there a societal safety net that provides for folks who decide they don't want to, not because they can't, but because they feel like they don't want to. And there's all these different layers of questions that come with that. So, coming back to this issue of an extinction class event, like will AI come to kill us? I think that, the probabilities are just people's hallucinations of what these things are. There's no math behind any of those numbers. I think it's a non-zero percentage chance, but that's true for electricity. That's true certainly for nuclear power and weapons. It's true for the bicycle, right? Like there's lots of ways that you can kill lots of people with seemingly basic inventions. So I guess my point would be that we have no idea, but we know there's a risk. We also know that the genie's out of the bottle and things are going to happen at the pace they're going to happen at this point. There's no force that I know of, governmental or natural or anything else, that can stop AI. So the conversation isn't about, in my opinion, the conversation isn't about stopping it. It's about being prepared for what's coming, which is about an everyday incremental approach to learning and adapting. And I think at the highest levels of government and people who are in very large companies as well need to be very thoughtful about working together to collaborate, to think through what does it look like if half or more of the current tasks that we do are automated. Does that mean that half or more of our people are gone? Or does it mean that we have an opportunity to create something else? And going back to our earlier conversation about purpose-driven business and longer-term horizon thinking versus shorter-term horizon thinking, there are a lot of companies that absolutely will just have reductions in force. They'll say, hey, you know what? We have 10,000 employees. We can get by with 3,000, 7,000 people. See you later. And they'll go, some of these people are even celebrating this, which I personally find appalling, but like they're saying, hey, like AI has helped us get rid of a whole bunch of people. And there's obviously some short-term financial benefits, but I also think that's incredibly short-sighted. I think organizations that invest in their people and say, hey, like you're here for a reason, you're doing stuff that's really important for our members, for our customers, perhaps for our society. We're going to invest in you and we're going to help you skill up so you become 10x of what you used to be. Those people, I think, are going to become amazingly capable of doing things we cannot imagine, right? We're just starting to see little previews of this now. So that makes me very excited about all the great things that we're going to be able to do at the same time. And, I'm obviously an AI optimist. I wouldn't be dedicating, so much of my time to it if I wasn't. But that doesn't mean that I'm also like putting blinders on and saying, well, I think we'll be fine. I think there's a non-zero chance of an extinction level event too. I just don't know. It's 20%. It might be 2%. It might be 0.2%. But regardless of what it is, it's non-zero. So we should be actively thinking about it. Along with what happens even prior to something at that scale of if you say, hey, 10 million jobs are going to be lost globally in the next 12 months, which that number may be very low. What does that mean? That's typically means a lot of bad things happen when you have those kinds of numbers of unemployed people.
Amith, do you think, I know right now we're in the thick of working toward AGI kind of piece by piece, but do you think it's going to be the event where we wake up one day and we have AGI? Do you think it'll be a bit more slow or will it be sudden all at once? We'll have it and panic, perhaps.
In my mind, for some people, it will certainly experience AGI that way because they've been in their bubble. And that's actually probably a large number of people that, that a lot of people I talked about AI, they're like, yeah, I've been paying attention to it. I remember, I know ChatGPT's out there. I also know it hallucinates quite a bit. And, they have kind of knowledge circa early 2023. And I'm like, oh, when's the last time you logged in? Like, oh, I haven't logged in. I've never done that. Or I logged in once. I had it make a cocktail recipe for me. And, or, some of the like kind of Gen 1 use cases of silliness from ChatGPT circa late 22, early 23, right? And that's better than having no idea what it is. But nonetheless, actually, some of those people will probably actually be more shocked than the people who admittedly have no idea what AI is, because at least those people are open-minded to the fact that they have no idea. Whereas some people who are like, oh yeah, I have my kids use it, or yeah, some of my employees are doing all sorts of great stuff with AI. Like actually I hear that from a number of senior executives. They'll go, oh, we're big in AI. We're doing lots of cool stuff. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. That's so exciting. Tell me more. And they're like, oh, yeah, I can't tell you too
I
much.
like your senior executive.
Yeah.
I like how you do that. That's
I'll
good.
keep that general. So, but there's a lot of people out there in our world, and I try to be encouraging. I'm also pretty aggressive, as you guys know, that if you don't get on this, you're going to face an extinction event in your career. So I think it's best to learn and to be a student of AI every day. But my bottom line on it is I have no idea. I think that those of us that are deep in this field will not really feel like some step change necessarily, but will probably feel more like, hey, like, oh yeah, we're here and we've been on this journey for years now. And so this is amazing. And so it's a little bit harder to realize how much power you have in your hand. Like think about, if you were to go talk to Mallory of early 2023 and say, hey, Mallory, 2 years and 6 months from now, I'm going to have this, and demo Claude Desktop with MCPs, with Opus 4, with all the stuff you do every day, right? Or image tools or Google VO or whatever, to Mallory of early 2023, that Mallory would have been completely blown away by it. Like, you wouldn't even be able to comprehend it because you wouldn't have been on that 2.5-year journey. And some people will experience AGI that way, right? Some people would say that what you have today is AGI. In fact, the definition of AGI from 10 years ago, absolutely this would be AGI. And people don't really recall that. 10 years ago, we were dealing with highly specialized, single-purpose machine learning models that were trained on private data sets. They were not foundation models. They were built for very specific predictive use cases. And the capability we have today, 10 years later, is absolutely AGI in the minds of probably 90% of the people that you would have talked to 10 years ago. So it is a bit of a moving goalpost. So I think ultimately it does matter because the experience and how you perceive the world is your reality. But to kind of soften the blow and to make it more of an opportunity than a risk, you got to do the same thing we always talk about. You know, this is the Sidecar Broken Record episode, which is where we say to you every single time, you're doing the right thing by listening to us and hopefully others as well on AI, and, you know, just investing a little bit of time every day. And, you know, I go on stage and talk about AI and people say, oh, what should I do? I say, listen, block off a 15-minute appointment with yourself every single day and knock out 15 minutes of dedicated AI learning. And that can be experimenting with a tool. It can be watching a video. It can be listening to a podcast. It can be reading a book. It can be anything you want. But allocate that time. If you do that day after day after day, within a very short period of time, you will be one of the AI fluent people that are out there. People who are not only AI literate, but you'll be an AI badass. So go do that.
I like it. Easy, digestible thing that you can go and do. And listen to the Sidecar Sync Broken Record episode. I like that. Amith, I want to talk briefly too about the open source, closed source debate, which I think is one of the episodes we did right when we launched the Sidecar Sync podcast, maybe like those first 10 episodes or so. In doing my research for this episode, I was reading about kind of the safety parameters that these AI companies use and how they often use like a second AI or AI layer to make sure that however you're prompting the first AI model is in alignment with terms of service and making sure you're not misusing it or using the model for harm. And the research was saying that while open source models definitely progress the field, that they're also just really easy ways for bad actors to get access to these models, to remove that secondary AI layer and then, you know, potentially use them for harm. So I just wanted to get your take really quickly on kind of the balance there of, because I believe you think open source in general is a good thing, but kind of how it might lend itself to the bad actors as well.
It is a good thing in my mind for a lot of reasons. The bad actors absolutely are going to take advantage of open source models and use them for tremendous harm. Yet, open source is still a very good thing in my mind because the good will outweigh the bad. There's far more good guys than bad guys in the world. And if we can get enough people doing good things with good AI, that will outweigh the bad. And the reason I still think that that's better than closed source in, you know, as a general statement is that the closed source thing requires trust and central authority. You have to say, hey, Sam Altman, Dario Amodei, and Demis Hassabis, the OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google chiefs in those areas respectively, we will place our trust in you to not only have the right intentions, but to be competent at that level, which is extraordinarily difficult, even for the most competent people in the world, to get it right. And so I'd rather have choice. I'd rather have multiple different players. I'd rather have the possibility of misuse along with the possibility of people being able to inspect these models, understand the depths of their inner working, create versions of them that are tailored for specific purposes. And the bottom line is we have no say in the matter. We collectively as a species do not control this. It is out of our hands at this point. You can claim that regulation could somehow, you know, put a cork back in this and sled on open source. I don't believe that. There will still be some countries somewhere that won't comply, and all the open source people will work there. And there's plenty of countries that are hugely pro open source, including the United States, as of last week, where the statement that came out of the White House very, very clearly backed the development of open source models very strongly. So, which I think is a really good thing. There are downside risks, but there's downside risks to everything, right? So in my mind, open source, what it does is it creates this enormous level of choice. It does create better transparency. One thing that might be helpful is to look back at the history of computing and what's happened in the open source movement broadly in the last couple decades. When you think about people who look at like the most secure systems and software components for things like network security or operating systems, a very large percentage of that now is all open source stack, all stuff that is freely available open source software that runs the internet, that runs the network stack, that runs a tremendous amount of the stuff we rely on for our most mission critical requirements. And the reason for that, the economic argument is very strong, but in addition to that, it's very secure because the process for understanding what's in the software is open for everyone's inspection. And a lot of people do deeply interrogate these open source products. Now, AI models work a little bit differently. They're open source, but the source code is actually very limited. It's more about open weights and open documentation and the training processes. So I think that lends itself to the earlier conversation about transparency and being able to create alignment, because you can also take these models and do post-training and RL, types of approaches to basically drive better behavioral alignment with your own use case. So I'm a big open source proponent. I am not an anti-closed source person. I think there's places where that model economically can make a lot of sense, and we use a lot of that stuff. But I think that you should have as much choice as possible, particularly early in a game like this.
The last topic we want to discuss today is AI infrastructure, which is really the undercurrent of all of our conversation thus far. The infrastructure needs for AI development are staggering. We know this. Projections show frontier AI companies will need 2 gigawatt data centers in 2027 and 5 gigawatt in 2028 just for single model training. Total U.S. frontier AI demands could reach 20 to 25 gigawatts by 2028. That's twice New York City's peak electricity demand just for training, with at least as much needed for everyday usage. The infrastructure race is global. China added over 400 gigawatts of power capacity last year compared to just several dozen gigawatts in the US. This is driving calls for dramatic policy changes, including making federal lands available for AI infrastructure, accelerating environmental reviews, and creating strategic reserves of critical components. Anthropic has proposed some solutions, including building large-scale AI training infrastructure, like we mentioned, the federal lands, expedited permitting, and power line buildouts, and also broad-based infrastructure for nationwide AI deployment, like accelerated geothermal and nuclear permitting, transmission corridors, and workforce development. For associations, really for everybody, right? This infrastructure challenge will affect AI availability, pricing, accessibility, and of course, competition. Amith, these infrastructure needs are massive. What do you think that means? It kind of, as I said, is the undercurrent of today's whole episode, but what do you think that means for AI availability and pricing and competition globally, domestically? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, first of all, I think those numbers are probably missing a 0 or 2, and maybe not in that time scale, but within a few years thereafter, because while training is going to be a massive workload, inference is the demand. When you use a model, you're doing inference on it, and that's going to absolutely blow up way beyond any of the estimates that we can possibly understand because of the value it's creating. So I don't think the demand side of it is going to drive us to have to do something different. My thought process on it is that there are a lot of ways that science can help. And this particular type of energy consumption is different than others. This type of energy consumption can be constricted to geographies where we can put data centers that are perhaps less desirable places to live, or places where we can both generate and consume the power in the same location, thereby eliminating some of the transmission problems or narrowing them. It also opens up the possibility of using sources of power that might be otherwise less desirable. For example, intermittent sources of powers that are complementary with other forms could be mixed in. So you say, for example, I might be able to generate the power in the Arizona desert, but I need the power somewhere else, and therefore you have this lossiness of transmission, as well as noticed a really old grid that makes it hard to transmit power, even short distances, much less long distances, in the current infrastructure we have. Well, you can solve for that because most of these data centers are going to be new builds. So if you build the data center and you co-locate or very closely locate a new nuclear reactor or some other source, you can dramatically mitigate some of those issues. But we have to move. We've got to go do this. There are new nuclear technologies like SMR, small modular reactors, which I think we've talked about a tiny bit in prior episodes. That'd be a fun thing to really drill into and get an expert on here, which I'm certainly not in energy or any of these technologies. But I read a lot about them because I find it fascinating. And what I would tell you is there's a lot more science than there are active solutions because things have historically moved so slow to an extent for good reason, because these are things that potentially can have environmental impact. They can have safety concerns, but we have to maintain those thoughts and concerns, but at the same time move a lot faster if we're going to keep up with the demand, because we're going to run out of power to be a player and not much just the leader. We want to continue to be the so-called leader. I don't know that we are, but to be one of the leaders, we're not going to maintain that ability at all if we run out of power.
Yeah, it's a good point. For our listeners who are rightfully concerned about environmental impact and the ways to do this in the smartest, most effective way, where hopefully as a nation, as a society, we can kind of keep up with the demands of AI, but doing so in a responsible way, what do you say to them?
I think people who are pro environment and concerned about carbon footprint and in general all of the other side effects of growing energy consumption should become the biggest advocates for the newer forms of nuclear technology. It's the technology we have, and I'm talking about fission, not the fusion. Fusion will be great when we get it one day. Maybe that's 10 years from now, maybe it's never. But for now, we have new forms of fission. And these new forms of fission are portable, they're smaller, they're replicable, they're scalable, and they've been proven actually quite a few different ways. There's different flavors of this that can be deployed. And again, China is way ahead of us. We have some experiments going, but it's you can count them on two hands, and we need to do a lot more, a lot faster. I think alternative energy generation through wind, through geothermal, through solar, all wonderful things, but intermittent sources of power and smaller sources of power don't solve the problem the way nuclear could. I think you could solve a very large chunk of this issue with nuclear. There's a lot we can do. And we have the skills, we have certainly the scientific skills, the engineering and construction labor needed to go and do this at scale. This is like an interstate highway type project. It's going to require massive investment from every level of government, particularly the federal government. It's going to require us to just go for it. We're not going to be able to keep up if we don't push this way. And this isn't like a question of, is this going to blow up our energy needs? It's a question of how many zeros are you adding to those estimates over the course of the next 10 to 20 years.
So nuclear fission is something we should be keeping an eye on.
I think so. I mean, I think even classical fission style technologies have become dramatically safer over the course of the decades as we refine the technology, yet we haven't deployed net new nuclear capacity in this country in a very long time. That's starting to change. You look at other countries that are very pro-environment, and you think about in Europe, for example, which tends to be more climate forward than the United States, and particularly a country like France, which is known for being pretty environmentally centric. They generate the majority, actually, I think the substantial majority of their total energy consumption through nuclear power, and they have for years. So there's something to be thought about there. If you're anti-nuclear for some reason because of safety concerns, or you think there's environmental issues there that can't be solved, go take a look at what France is doing, right? So that's not a small country. It's not the scale of the United States, population or GDP or anything like that, but it's a big country, and they generate a lot of power from nuclear. So I think there's a lot to be learned there. And, I think what China is doing at the scale they're doing it also should be studied. They figured out a lot of stuff over there. There's a lot of smart people over there. They're working extremely hard. There's a lot we can learn from not looking at them with envy, not looking at them with anger, but to say, hey, they're doing some stuff really well. Like, let's go look at that. I'm not saying everything they're doing is perfect. There's lots of issues, but there's things we can learn from almost anyone. And China's doing a lot of stuff the right way in order to move fast and win.
Mm. Well, Amith, in this episode, I hear my puppy starting to cry a little bit. I guess that's my cue to wrap things up. I don't know if
Perfect
you
timing.
can hear it. I wanted to
Nope.
say we've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about Anthropic, we've talked about safety, we've talked about AGI, some potential AI doomsday scenarios, and we've talked about infrastructure. In terms of today's episode, all of that considered, what do you think is a key takeaway or the key takeaways for our association and nonprofit listeners?
I think we just need to all stay pretty humble. Even if you think you know a lot about this stuff, it's hard to really know a lot about this stuff. And so it's important to keep investing your energy in it. I also think it's important to share this with others, even people who are not necessarily super receptive of AI. We all know them. They're people who are kind of anti-AI in some way, maybe not like deeply philosophically, but they just have concerns. I would still encourage those people to at least try it and to try different things, because I think it's our responsibility to try to bring as many people along with us as we can. It's Sidecar's mission is to educate 1 million people by the end of the decade on AI in the association sector specifically. We think that's, our small dent in the universe. If we can do that in the next 4.5 years, we're making a difference. We're helping this sector not only be sustainable, but to thrive in the future. And I'd love for everyone to have a goal like that, where, your goal as an association leader is to get everyone in your community or a large number of people in your community AI fluent, AI native, AI capable, so that they have not just a fighting chance, but a reason to be optimistic about their future. So to me, that's the big takeaway kind of always. But the humility that needs to come with that is really hard, especially if you spend time teaching others about this. It's hard to be a student at the same time. It's a different gear you have to put yourself into with intentionality.
Mm-hmm. Building the plane as we fly it is what they say. Everybody, you heard it here. Stay humble. We'll continue keeping you up to date with the latest AI news on the Sidecar Sync podcast. We'll see you all next week.
Thanks for tuning in to the Sidecar Sync podcast. If you want to dive deeper into anything mentioned in this episode, please check out the links in our show notes. And if you're looking for more in-depth AI education for you, your entire team, or your members, head to sidecar.ai.